Hello, happiness abounders, and welcome back. I'm recording this on December 31st, 2018. It is almost the new year, and because today is a Monday and I have a goal to be providing you guys with theme weeks in the new year, I decided that we'd kick that off today with the first theme week of our 2019 theme segment for the podcast, or theme, if you will, for the podcast. So today, a couple of things we need to review. First, that this is the first episode of the theme surrounding emotional awareness, which is what we'll be talking about this week. Second, you will have all the access you have had before with the discussion about everything that we talk about. However, I will also be mentioning opportunities or options, if you will, to have downloadable content of digital assets and workbooks, guides, fill in the blank templates, checklists, diagrams, etc. If I mention that, that means that that is something you can get if you are a member of the Happiness Abound. I think I've decided on Collective as the name. Anyways, if you are a member of that, that means you have subscribed or opted into the 1-year plan, which actually can be designated to 3 different areas, which is monthly, 90 days, or for the full year. And that gives you access not only to these free episodes, which you get no matter what, but those downloadable digital assets, full QA 24/7 with me if you want clarification on something we discuss, or if you want to see how it could be relevant to your own situations. And I will also be giving 1-hour trainings once a week, going next level deeper than what we go here, and accompanying those digital downloadable assets. So as we move into the new year and into these theme weeks, you may hear me talk about the 1-year Happiness Abound Collective. You may hear me talk about downloadable digital assets. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to happinessabound.com, go to the 1-year section, which is in the top navigation, and it brings you those 3 options. Those 3 options, again, are a monthly subscription, a 90-day subscription, so a quarterly, or a 1-year subscription. And that's totally up to you. I get that if some people want to try something for a month and see how they feel about it, totally get if you're like, I want to dedicate 90 hard days to these topics and then I'll see how I feel. And some of you are like, I'm all in. I've listened to every podcast episode. It's resonated with me. It's changed my life. I want to go to those next levels. Let's go full year. And whatever that option is for you, totally fine. Or if your option is, you know what, I'm just going to keep on listening to the podcasts. Either way, I'm so delighted and happy that you are here with us today. So that was a long introduction to today's episode, which is all about the importance, the foundational importance, if you will, of emotional awareness as it pertains to your happiness. Now, if you're watching on IGTV or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, wherever you're watching, if you're watching a video of me, you'll see me be looking down to the left a lot. That's because that is where, at this point in time, I have my notebook that has my outline of what I want to talk today as we move into the theme of emotional awareness. So that said, if you're listening on your listening platform of choice, then you wouldn't be able to tell any difference, but that's great either way. You know I'm organized. I have a checklist of things I want to discuss with us today. So, diving in. I know that was 3 minutes. Thanks for sticking around. So, first thing I want to do is ask you to check in on your feelings and emotions right now. I'll give you a few minutes, or a few seconds, I should say. Don't want to do a few minutes of dead air here, but a few seconds to really take a breath and go, how do I feel today? With it being December 31st, maybe you feel excited. Maybe you feel anxious. Maybe you feel like you should be doing more, right? There's so many feelings that we can have going on inside of us. But I want to ask you to check in and see how you're feeling right now. Take a big breath. Just say, how am I feeling? What emotions do I have right now? Now, whatever those emotions are, my next question for you is this. How are you labeling those emotions? I don't mean labeling the emotions in like, I feel sad and holidays are a hard time for me, so I'm labeling this emotion I feel as sad, but I mean labeling in the sense of good and bad. Are you labeling an emotion of overwhelm? Or let's say, overwhelmed because it's December 31st and you feel like you should have some goals and you don't, so you feel overwhelmed and anxious. Are those feelings of overwhelmed, anxious good or bad? How would you label those feelings? That excitement for the new year, that nervousness that's a little bit exciting, how do you label that? Because they could swing either way, right? Is it good or is it bad to you? Whatever that feeling, whatever that check-in we just had, how are you labeling those emotions as good or bad? Because here's what I want to talk about today. Now that we've done that exercise, I want to talk about how we will not always be happy. I did an episode a few days back where I mentioned how I woke up grumpy and elaborated a little bit on this, but not fully because I knew I wanted to talk about it in this theme week. But we're not always going to be happy. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we have as a human race, and as a society even, is that if we do all this work in investing into our happiness and our personal growth, we'll never feel sadness. And that's just not the case. But the difference is, and at least it is for me, in being able to acknowledge those emotions, and instead of labeling them as good or bad, labeling them for what they are, which let's say it's sadness. Labeling that sadness as not good, not bad, but just sadness. When I take away that judgment, that label of good or bad, suddenly it makes it okay to feel sad. So when we're not happy all the time, because frankly, 50% of our emotions, 50% of the time, we are not going to be happy. Happy quotes around that. But if we can go, okay, I'm checking in, I'm becoming aware that I am feeling sad. I'm not going to give that judgment. I'm not going to label it, but instead I'm just going to kind of sit in it for a minute and breathe. When you can do that, and then when you can say, okay, so why am I feeling sad? What is putting me in this space? What thoughts am I having that are creating these emotions? You can move into that space, and then the next thing you know, the sadness isn't so detrimental that it brings you down, but it's more of a, okay, I'm feeling kind of sad right now. I'm going to work through it. We're going to find a way to get back to the level I want to be at, and then you can be happy again. And when you can be aware of your emotions, that's a foundational piece, an important piece to your happiness, because it's not labeling it as good or bad and judging it and then therefore judging yourself like a good or bad person, or like you should or shouldn't be doing something or feeling a certain way. Instead, it allows you that opportunity to actually feel that emotion and come back to center, right? To come back to center or higher. But knowing that we're not always going to be happy. This isn't the end all be all, but without, I'm going to air quote this, without negative emotions, we would never know the full joy of the positive emotions. So we have to have both, but you do not have to let the negative ones take control. And the control starts by labeling it as good or as bad. And in most cases, we label negative emotions as bad. And then we go in this spiral of other emotions surrounding that, instead of just acknowledging that emotion, being aware of that emotion, and then working through it, and then coming back to that center and that above, which could be happiness. So I'm going to leave it there today. I know it's a super short episode, but really want you to have the ability to check in with yourself, see if you label your emotions, and give yourself that option to not label your emotions as good or as bad. And tomorrow we'll talk about identification of emotions. So I'm willing to bet that when I asked you what emotions you were feeling, you may have had 5 or so that came up, and they come up for you regularly. Tomorrow we'll talk about those blanket emotions and how we can have the ability to dive in deeper into identification of other emotions to help us be more emotionally aware and be able to come back to that center and that happiness. So that said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of this first of the theme weeks on emotional awareness. First of the episodes on this theme week, I should say, of emotional awareness. So if you liked it, let me know. HappinessAbound.com, Happiness Abound blog on Facebook, and Happiness Abound on Instagram.